All right, so we have established a stage where we understand that a real time simulation is different from a simulation which we do it on a personal computer. And the platform which we need to develop is altogether has its own constraints as compared to the desktop systems. All right, so what are the applications where we need to develop a real time platform? As it is mentioned in the slide, if you look at the left side is all non real time systems like user interface, computer simulation. We already extensively discussed that clearly says that computer simulation is a non real time. And some extend these internet video set top boxes, these are all called soft real time systems. In soft real time means missing an event is not an issue. For example, when you are watching some film video through internet, if some audio or video is missed for a fraction of second, it doesn't cause much damage. Even user sometimes won't be aware of it because of the persistence. Sometimes I won't recognize, or sometimes your ear won't recognize that a sample is missed. So that's why these systems sometimes called soft real time, though they are real time, but however missing an event is not a catastrophic. Look at the flight control, engine control, and almost all power electronic applications. All power electronic applications are the hard real time systems. So naturally, these right from these telecommunication systems to the power electronic systems, one need to test these systems in real time hardware, because as I already mentioned, the computer simulations doesn't really take care of the real time issues. So that means whatever you have done the testing in computer simulation is only 50 to 60%. Remaining validation of 40% is still left. So naturally you need to have a different kind of a platform in order to verify your real time issues. How do I make my system as a real time? So what are the platforms which are available, or I can say the compilers and the operating system. If you want to make your computer as a real time system, then as you can see, that is a point number 2, that is real time extensions for the existing operating system. That means, say for example, I'm not sure about Windows, but in Linux there is a patch called real time Linux. That means if your Linux, as we all know, Linux is a open source operating system. Linux is easily reconfigurable by the user. So a real time computer, if you want to make, then better you install a Linux and on top of it install a real time Linux. So RT Linux is a patch for the existing operating system for a desktop system. Then it allows you the real time Linux, its abstraction layer, it will allows you the RT Linux to schedule your task, so that whatever is the priorities, whatever is the deadlines you want to set, it is easily possible by using RT Linux. Otherwise, your conventional Linux, conventional Windows operating system is not reconfigurable by the user. Otherwise, other than personal computers, if you are intended to develop your own application specific system, there are IEEE standards are there where they specify about priority based kernels for the embedded applications. There are some freewares which are available, open source tools like QNX is popularly used for automotive sector. And the space applications, robotics applications, people use the commercial uh, platforms like VxWorks for this priority based kernel development for the embedded systems. Otherwise, there are some communities, research communities, who has developed the RT kernels, real-time kernels, for these embedded systems, where they looks like your general purpose system, but their kernel is a real-time kernel, like TinyOS, Shark, etc. Uh, for embedded applications, the conventional compilers like C, C++, Java doesn't work. So naturally, the compilers which are used for the application development for embedded real-time systems are RT real-time compilers. So they are different as mentioned below. Fine. So what is the difference between real-time simulation and non-real-time simulation? As we have discussed in last half an hour about what is real time means it's not about the speed, it is about the timeliness, that is meeting the deadlines. But however, there are three ways of testing your algorithms. Your algorithm could be a plant model, or your algorithm could be a control algorithm. In both the cases, there are three methods, what is called rapid prototyping of a product. So if you want to quickly develop your product, other than your conventional non-real-time simulations, nowadays people prefer real-time simulators. So the rightmost side, that is called software in loop. In software in loop, what happens is your computer, first you have to make it as a real-time simulator, as I already explained, by using RT kernel, and then by using the any compiler or a simulator, both the plant model as well as the controller, both of them you are representing them as a mathematical models inside the computer. So here what happens is, including your plant, which is a load, even your controller, you are modeling by using some set of differential equations which are executed by your a software. So software in the loop means your controller as well as plant, both of them are the models which are not the real systems, but running in a desktop system which is configured for a real-time platform. Second method popularly used nowadays is called hardware in the loop. In hardware in the loop, what happens is, though your computer may not be a real-time configurable system, but since you want to test really your plant or controller, so what people do is, they model it on a personal computer, whether the plant or maybe algorithm, control algorithm, but then finally they deploy it on a real controller. So this real controller is definitely a application specific system, but at the same time it is not designed to be interfaced to any real plant. It is a system which is a highly computational system, but it may not be having actuators, it may not be having the sensors, but it is a system, as I already mentioned, without hard disk or without any operating system, where it allows you to execute high-end mathematical models. But since we are not using general purpose operating system, naturally you are more closer to the actual system. But since it is called hardware in the loop, that is because your system, your plant and your control algorithm, both of them are executed in a real hardware, not in a computer, not in a general purpose system. So naturally, whether it is a electrical load, or whether it is a sensor, or whether it is a machine, everything is a model which is a number, but then it is executing in a application specific integrated system. So that is why it is called, it is a loop. Your input, your output, your control, everything is in the loop in a application specific hardware, not in a computer. So it is widely used nowadays. The DSpace and some other Texas Instrument as their own platforms, which are slightly expensive platforms for implementing the hardware and loop. We have developed this kind of a setup by using DSP processors and FPGAs, which is mentioned in some other tutorials. Fine. So today we are talking about the third part, that is about testing a real plant. So that is the leftmost method, where a real-time simulator. But here what happens is I am testing a real plant. It is not a number which I am testing. Here what happens is my sensors, my actuators, and my plant, everything is real plant, right? To a real plant, my algorithm, my controlled algorithm is downloaded and tested. However, I am using a computer is only just for communication purpose, but otherwise I can get rid of even computer also if I go for a slightly expensive experimental setup. So computer is just for a representation, otherwise it could be replaced by some high-end computational unit which has an inbuilt internet connectivity and interfacing these things. But since at this stage we are going for a low cost solution, I'm using still computer, but computer doesn't have any role except providing a user interface for communicating and developing. But otherwise the program is not executed in computer. Here the controller and control algorithm is downloaded in an actual system and then interface to a real plant. So that means real plant means here really a machine, really a heating system, real sensor, everything is real. All right, so we are talking about actual system, though it is not physically in front of us but remotely controlled, so that's why it is called virtual. So I have cleared the concept that virtual lab is a term is used by several people for several uh, platforms, but in our context, virtual lab means it is a real-time system where my variables are actually not just a numbers. The variables are converted into electrical signals and controlling my actual real plant, and the variables are meeting the deadlines. All right, so how do I set up this system? Once again, as I mentioned, as a IoT application, finally this is a machine to machine communication. So a client is one machine and the resource is the other machine. In short, for representation I used a computer, otherwise it could be a device to device communication. So device means other than computer, but at present we are not talking about device to device communication. That is because this platform is meant for students, where a user interface always we would like to have, so that the client 1 to client n are my students, where they will be accessing this resource, that is the plant, where they will be writing the programs, they are controlling the plant, and they are acquiring the data, and they are monitoring the data, and they are also putting the data on a cloud platform. So since I want to have a full duplex communication, and the two between the user and that is a human intervention and a device, so we prefer to interface a computer to a device rather than a device to device communication. All right, so now what do you mean by low cost system? Low cost system means now here without paying any royalty to any service provider, I am using some freewares in order to connect my device to the internet. So since this is a evaluation system and a learning system, naturally we do not want to spend money on the licensing part. So what am I doing? What we are doing is I have my resource, which is my plant, which is having a real hardware interface to one system, one laptop or one computer, which act as a server. Then I'm installing some freeware, some remote desktop software, where this will communicate to my client with the help of some APIs or the service provider. So there are good number of people who are providing this kind of services, so that this server and client communication happens without much royalty to be paid. Yeah, so what are my concerns while developing this system is, if at all, if I want to go for a real platform, then even this client and the service provider and server, everything is make using of my own user developed software, where I would be able to schedule my own tasks. But however, as I mentioned, since we prefer for a low cost solution, I'm using the freewares which are already available for the student community. Otherwise, ideally speaking, what am I supposed to have is my own IP address, which is a static IP address, and then some leased line. So if I provide my resource, that is my plant, with a static IP address and the leased line, in the sense it is 24/7 with a full duplex communication, it will provide a service to the clients. But then, since having a leased line and building my own server and developing a software is a cost involved. So for educational purpose, I think we can avoid this. Okay, so how this platform is different from my other electronic applications. This platform is all about a variable which is a in a closed loop system, not a open loop system. That means now it is continuously in the loop. So how it is different from my open loop systems? Say let us take an example of a washing machine, where I would like to dry the clothes. So in a open loop system, what happens is, I would like to dry my clothes. So for that, whatever is the heat required, the heating element, for a certain period of time, I will keep it on. So let us say 5 minutes, I assume that is sufficient to dry my clothes. So what we do is, generally there will be a timer. The timer we set, and then we switch on our system. Then this time is converted into some electrical signal, which will switch on the heating element, and some amount of power will be delivered to the coil, that will generate the heat, and the clothes which may be in the washing machine will be go for a dryness. But then this entire process is assuming that is ideal. But then in reality, this won't be ideal, because a lot of disturbances will be there in the process of heating. For example, we always call as a losses. The losses are bound to be there based on my type of clothes, or the wetness of the clothes, or the leakages within the system, atmospheric conditions, my input, and so on. So many variables are causing the disturbance to my entire process. Naturally, whatever is the amount of time I set may not be accurate. Say for example, sometimes whatever is the time I set may be less heat, so I won't get the desired output. Or else sometimes, for example, we have seen in a non-smart oven, sometimes my cake, right, may be burn out, because there is no feedback where it tells that what is the condition of my cake or food which I am cooking. So that's exactly happens in a low cost drying system, without looking at the, without sensing at the environmental conditions. The system will apply then, like we have seen in a low cost refrigerators, where sometimes the vegetables, the fruits are spoiled because the refrigerator is not sensing the quality of the environment. So it will simply switching on, switching off based on the time which we set. So the compressor will be on or off, either 0% or 100%. It is applying that too with a specific time. So since there is no relationship between my output and my input, naturally desired output may not be obtained always, because I'm not sensing my output. All right. So this is exactly happens in an open loop system. What is closed loop system? In closed loop system, though everything is there, I have a controller, heating element, clothes, a same system, but few modifications. First modification is there is no timer here. It is a controller. Controller means computational unit. The algorithm is executed in a controller. What is the role of algorithm? It has, what are the variables? One, the input is the desiredness. What is the desiredness? Desiredness is not the time, desiredness is the dryness. That what is that I want to achieve? It could be desired temperature, desired pressure, desired humidity, whatever. So that's what I want to achieve. Then what is my output? Output is actually I am measuring that what is the temperature, what is the humidity, what is the radiation, what is the speed. I'm actually measuring. How do I measure the output? With the help of a sensor. So at output I have a sensor. So it's not just generating, it's also sensing, and that sensing variable is a feedback. That's called feedback loop, where my input, which is a desired, and my output, which is measured. And what am I doing? I'm subtracting my output from the input, and then there will be error. The error could be a positive, the error could be negative. So error could be means, say for example, if you want to control a temperature of your room, the temperature may be more, the temperature may be a less. So naturally it is always a fluctuating, temperature is always a fluctuating. So error could be more than the desired value or less than the desired value, but it will never be stable, because your disturbances are many, which are not actually maintaining or is not allowing your actual input to be available at the output. So always losses are bound to be there. So that means error is bound to be there. So that's the reason where nowadays almost all systems, every single electrical electronic system is what people prefer is a closed loop system. But that is not enough. What people want is not just a closed loop system. What people want is a closed loop system which is a smarter system, which is smart enough to learn from the failures or configure on its own in spite of these disturbances. So that means my algorithm which is running inside the controller is not just only finding the error between the input and output, but it is also trying to reconfigurable based on my application, wherever it may be. Say for example, sometimes my application may demand continuous change of input, or my application might demand continuous change of output, or my application might demand lot of other variables to be considered while controlling my output. So when I have so many dynamically changing variables, and then lot of variables to be considered as a part of my process, So then probably a simple a closed loop system with a simple control algorithm may not be enough. That is where this closed loop system is always a research uh, problem statement for the last 40-50 years, and it is bound to be there in future is also. So that is where this artificial intelligence, people talk about artificial intelligence in robotics, artificial intelligence nowadays in online, most of these business models, people talk about, these are all about a system which is trying to achieve the desired value, is all about a closed loop control system by using some, people talk about machine learning algorithms, soft computing techniques, and so on. All right, so it's really a challenge to make a system which is tracking or achieving the desired input in spite of these many dynamic variables. So with this intention, as already mentioned in the beginning of this tutorial, that we would like to develop a system which is a open source system, low cost in nature, and it should be easily available, so you don't need to invest on any of these commercial tools. So this system, which is a plant, as you can see left side, my heating element is around some 15 to 20 watts of bulb, which is I am going to control the temperature of this chamber, and my disturbance I am going to create with the help of this DC fan. So I am not allowing this temperature to settle down, so I will be controlling the DC fan to create some disturbances inside the chamber. Then how do I know what is the temperature inside the chamber? As you can see, there is a sensor here, a semiconductor sensor called LM35, which is measuring the temperature of this chamber. And also I would like to know whether this filament is really on or off or blown off, etc. So there is a light sensing device, LDR, light dependent resistor, is also measuring the intensity of the chamber. So though it's not a real plant, but however this board also is used for real plant. As I already mentioned, in our product development center, we have used this board for our railways, Indian railways, for battery monitoring systems, battery charging systems, induction heating systems, and the DC drives, because those applications probably load may differ, sensor may differ, but however my control system, at least at this point of time, is good enough. Otherwise for real plant, we have actually used a DSP processor or a advanced PIC microcontroller called DSPIC. So maybe in some other tutorials we will elaborate on how to interface a real plant to the IoT application. Alright, so on this board, as you can see, Atmel microcontroller 328. The purpose of selecting Atmel 328 is for a simple reason. We would like to interface this board to a Arduino compiler. So when I want to make it this lab as a virtual lab without any human intervention, wherever this board is there, a student should be able to load a program. So please understand, load a program is different from reading a data from a device. So load a program means I'm self booting my controller, which is really a challenging issue. So we prefer to use a low cost solution instead of going for expensive emulators which will cost you thousands of rupees. We preferred a controller which is Atmel controller, which has an inbuilt bootloader, which allows you to load the application programs by using a compiler like Arduino. So that is the reason why we have provided a programming interface by using Atmel 328P, because it is directly compatible to Arduino compiler. Then how do I program it? So programming is done through USB, though the Atmel microcontroller doesn't have USB, but we have converted this USB to UART by using a IC called FT232, which converts USB into UART protocol. Then, as I mentioned, just for a simple application, we are using a sensor LM35, which is actually interfaced here. Otherwise, this board also has a capability to measure up to 1200 degrees centigrade by using a thermocouple. So we'll explain later. And then the 15 to 20 watts of power cannot be controlled by a microcontroller. So this electrical load we have interfaced to a MOSFET, right? So a IRF MOSFET is used, N-channel MOSFET is used, so that it can withstand few watts of power in order to control it. But then we need to understand this is a typical power electronic application. So a power circuit should be isolated from a digital circuit, because the power draws huge amount of current which will disturb your ground. So your ground potential may not be at zero. So naturally any power electronic application demands a isolation, including your biomedical applications. So all biomedical healthcare applications where the human should be isolated, human interface should be isolated from the actual system. So this isolation also we have covered in this lecture, how isolation is achieved with the help of, as you can see, a isolation is done by using a optical isolation, optocoupler. So that means communication between digital system and the power system is done optically. That means through light we are controlling this entire thing. There are few other interfaces also there on the board, like real-time clock, RTC, LCD interface, keyboard interface, so that this also could be used as a HMI, human machine interface, for our other products which we are developing for the industry. Alright, so the objective is to make a system which is real time, low cost, and compatible to Arduino compiler, which is a free compiler. Lot of students communities are using, and lot of support is available, and easy to compile the programs, because lot of libraries are there. So it is a user friendly compiler. Due to this reason, just for a learning purpose, this platform, we are not emphasizing on the programming part. Otherwise, as a developer, one is supposed to use a compiler like a Keil compiler, a compiler which allows you to more uh, 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 flexible in terms of hardware configuration, so that you should be able to access each and every peripheral, or each and every control register of a controller. But since this compiler Arduino has a built-in libraries, so most of the times the program is simple in nature. Alright, so due to this we have selected a simple microcontroller Atmega 328, which is 8-bit, operates on 16 megahertz. Please understand, 16 megahertz is the clock speed at 3.3 volts. If you are intended to operate at higher speed, then this microcontroller may not be useful. So we are using right now either two ways, either you can use 5 volts or 3.3 volts. Now based on your application, this microcontroller works. And then since there is a lamp is there, there is a filament is there, so we need to have a 12 volt supply of at least a ampere of current. Since the control algorithm generates a pulse width modulated signal. So naturally you should use a microcontroller which supports PWM output. Then each pin of the microcontroller uh, can source around 50 milliamperes of current. So this is the upper limit. So at any point of time, whenever you are interfacing any of these devices to the controller, one supposed to draw less than 50 milliamperes of current. Otherwise you are going to physically damage the semiconductor device. Since the sensors are majority of the sensors are analog in nature, so we expect the analog inputs, at least few analog inputs from the microcontroller where we can interface the sensors. Most importantly about the program memory, whatever is the control algorithm we develop naturally is going to be loaded in the flash program memory, which is a rewritable. So this controller has 32 kilobytes, which includes a bootloader. Bootloader is the one important feature why we have selected this controller, is because as I'm going to explain the subsequent slides, that you can remotely load the program without having any programmer or a emulator. So that is the beauty of this controller and the Arduino. And finally, since we are always in a loop, so my program is going to generate some dynamic variables. These variables are going to store in a static RAM. So we have a limited static RAM, 2 kilobytes. While executing the program, if you want any variables to be stored in a non-volatile memory, then there is a EEPROM, which is 1 kilobytes of space. So this is all about the device, that is a computational device which we have selected, as these are the resources. So as already mentioned, that we always has to work in a constrained environment, and the constraints are my resources. So resources are the biggest challenge in any real-time application development. Okay, so though it's not that important at this point of time, but please understand that, as already mentioned, that whatever is my board has the features, right? As I said, there is a LCD, keyboard, real-time clock interface by using DS1307. There is a provision for DC motor or servo motor to create some disturbances. There is a MOSFET we have interfaced to control the power, IRF Z44, and the sensing part can be done by using LM35. Up to 100 degrees centigrade I can sense, but otherwise in a real plant we are using this system also for a real plant, where the temperature will go up to 1200 degrees centigrade, which is a melting temperature. So MAX 31855 we are using, which is a thermocouple interface to this thermocouple amplifier MAX 31855, where my output is not analog. Please understand, this is not a amplifier. This also convert the amplified signal into a digital form. So my output is in a serial form, where I am using microcontroller port PB5, PB4, PD7, which is a serial peripheral interface. So a serial peripheral interface is another standard of a serial communication. Alright, so this is once again a issue while developing a platform. How do I program my serial peripheral interface? So Arduino has an inbuilt library for this purpose. And then we, as I mentioned, LDR for light sensing, potentiometer to set my desired values or the reference values, and USB to UART. Right now, at least in this demonstration, we are using the entire communication is through USB and to the internet, but otherwise in the subsequent tutorials we also will demonstrate that by using Wi-Fi we are able to put the data on a cloud platform. So my right side is all about the microcontroller interfacing. So this is the challenge. A 28 pin IC has a limited number of programmable pins, but I have to carefully allocate my resources to all my interfaces. And not only that, there is at the end, that is a point number 14, is a microcontroller and power electronic interface. That means this is not only standalone system, but this entire board is also interfaced to another real plant where I am also communicating and monitoring my process parameters. So that means a one microcontroller will communicate to another microcontroller, because in a real plant I won't be using this platform for computational purpose, because a 8-bit microcontroller with 16 megahertz speed and 32 kilobytes of memory is may not be sufficient to implement a sophisticated algorithms. So there we prefer to use a DSP processor, which is 32-bit floating point arithmetic operations, or a DSPIC microcontroller, because industrial standards are different as compared to consumer sector. So we use this platform, this platform, that is Atmel Atmega 328, only for HMI purpose. And then that's the reason where my last point says that this HMI is interfaced to a DSP board or a PIC board, where the entire process is done by DSP, but user is interfaced, or communication, which are the slow variables, are done by using this board. So that's the reason where this is not only just a student's learning platform, but this also a HMI for my all other industrial applications. Alright, so as I already mentioned, though I am using Atmega 328 IC, which is a hardly 28 pin IC, DIP IC we are using, but carefully you need to understand that this entire system we have assigned so that almost all the learning interfaces, user interfaces, learning variables, where I should be able to test it. So that's the reason where carefully we have allocated. As you can see, port B PB1 is, why this slide is important is because when you write a program, as already mentioned, this is not a desktop system, this is an application specific system. So this system, it doesn't exist anywhere in the world, because the reason, simple reason is, when I have designed my system, I only know where my interfaces are there. But if somebody develops the same system, it is not compulsory that, for example, heater, it's not compulsory that he or she has to interface to PB1. They can interface to some other port. So that's the reason where I already said that compiled programs as it is doesn't work in a real-time systems, is because every system is designed for a specific application. So naturally they are not general purpose. So your standard input outputs are may not be same. So with this keeping in mind, that please you always should refer this slide when you write a program, that where these sensors are interfaced, where your keyboard, display, motors are interfaced to the controller, so that in the program you always has to refer to that. And finally, when it comes to communication, since this doesn't have any inbuilt USB, or it doesn't have any inbuilt wireless communication, so we are always using, most of the microcontrollers, 90% of the microcontrollers uses UART. So all other outside communication, including the IoT application, one has to develop your own interface. Say for example, as already mentioned, right now we are using FT232 for USB interface, but otherwise in the remaining tutorials we also will show you how a Wi-Fi can be interfaced to the same UART for IoT application development. Alright, so similarly the thermocouple, which I already mentioned, is not a analog output. This is a digital serial output. So naturally we are using SPI port of the microcontroller. As you can see, data out and clock is the SPI standard for serial communication purpose. So you require a little bit of programming skills in order to write the programs for this RTC, which is another IC we have interfaced, and thermocouple once again is a SPI port. The third complicated part is about the LCD. Why you require a programming skills for LCD is because generally LCDs are different types. We have used LCD here in this project as a serial type, not a parallel one. As you can see, there is a shift register, serial shift register we have used because we are exhausted by the number of IO pins. So we have decided to interface the LCD, which is a serially data will be transferred in order to display the text on a LCD. So naturally a little bit of programming overhead will increase to transfer the data serially, then the serial data will be converted into parallel by using an external interface. Similarly, if you want to set any parameters, not of course not in this platform, but in future HMI applications, the keyboard is once again not a standard 4x4 keyboard or a ASCII keyboard. It is a 4x1 keyboard. That means every parameter you have to enter by using these 4 keys. That's another challenging issue. Why we preferred Arduino as a compiler, because for learning purpose at least you don't need to focus on the much of the hardware initialization. You can concentrate more on the C programming skills, so that one can develop first the various functions and make using of the functions and reusing the functions and so on. So the focus is on that, but otherwise in as I mentioned, in our real industrial projects, we prefer to use some other compilers and other DSP processors or the PIC controllers. Okay, so as far as this IoT platform is concerned, how the client server communication takes place. Ideally speaking, we are supposed to have our own software in place, and then we should have our own leased line, and we should have our own static IP address. But since it is expensive in nature, we prefer to use some free service providers like AnyDesk or Show My PC, TeamViewer, SSH, Chrome Remote Desktop, or other implementation. As you can see, IBM and Apple and so many people have developed Show My PC and all. So these are all, lot of people are providing various APIs for this client server communication. Though initially they may be a freewares, but later on to make use of these other features they may charge you. So you can see the last line, if at all, if you want to compare that how to select a tool for this client server communication. I have mentioned some of the parameters to be considered. Quickly, between a server and client, what are the features one should consider? Undoubtedly, first of all, the platform, right? So the platform means what is that operating system I'm using, which protocol I'm using, and does it communicate in an encrypted form or not. See, if at all you are worried, see, I mean, these service providers are also providing the services to the financial sector. So naturally what happens is, anybody hack this client server communication, then it's going to be a big disaster. So naturally people are worried about the security part, that my server is at some place and remotely I am accessing that, but if somebody hack this communication, then anything can happen. So that's the reason people are worried about this entire communication. Does it have a inbuilt encryption or not? And also naturally, since it is a bidirectional communication, full duplex communication, user prefers the complete communication like file transfer remotely by using the client server communication. If a server is playing some audio video, naturally we expect the service provider also transfer not only video, is also audio files, so that remotely I would be able to play it and listen it and so on. But for educational purpose, one important feature which we look for is about the multi sessions and seamless window. That is because see, what we look for is about many users. Many users means generally people use one client and one server, but then we prefer a many clients and one server. That is because when I have a batch of 20 students, all my 20 students should be able to access my server where they will be writing a programs or accessing the data. So they should have a complete, at least 20 people, more than 20 people should be able to access my hardware resources. So we prefer a multiple sessions and seamless window so that I can run my client server programs. And yeah, so other parameters like permission request or passing through your firewalls and all, we also expect these should be a part of the features of that system, and maximum simultaneous connections and so on. So yeah, so I mean, based on your application development, one has to carefully look at these parameters while choosing the this API. Otherwise, one can build your own, but then, as I mentioned, it's a time-consuming and expensive option for as far as this service is concerned. So we are using for this demonstration purpose, we are using AnyDesk, but otherwise I also mentioned there are some other freewares are there. One can install on your personal computer. It's very simple. As the moment if you install, just you have to create a code. Otherwise you can also create your own code. The moment a system creates a code, so this is the code, you have to pass it on to the client, so that a client will send a request with the help of the code, and the server simply has to say accept. So once the accept is done, then yes, then this full duplex communication takes place between the server and client. As soon as the client terminates that, then that's all, this is the end of the connection. So it's as simple as that. I mean, absolutely no programming, no reconfiguration, etc. as far as this remote PC or AnyDesk such type of APIs are concerned. Alright, so a little bit of the hardware description. As I mentioned that while developing this board, we want to make it compatible to Arduino as a compiler. So if I want to make it programmable through Arduino compiler, I am supposed to load a bootloader first. Then only I can load my application program. So please understand, there is a difference between loading a program and loading a firmware. So before loading a program, that is application, one need to load a firmware. So this slide is a bootloader, which is a 0.5 kilobytes of memory it occupies in your microcontroller, is a bootloader. So I mean, when I explain Arduino tool, there I will explain that so you need to install first a device driver, what is called USB ASP, which is freely available on the internet, called ZADIG 2.5 is the latest version. So you can install first this piece of code as a device driver. Then your USB will recognize a programmer called USB ASP programmer, which is a low cost in order to load the bootloader. Once you install this, then you can connect the USB ASP programmer to USB port. Then Arduino allows you to load the bootloader. So this is a little bit of configuration one has to do that while loading the program, where the programmer you have to select. Traditionally, by default, AVR ISP MK2 will be there, but you have to select USB ASP in the select programmer. Then you have to select a board called Arduino Uno, because Arduino supports many type of microcontrollers from various companies, but we are using, as I mentioned, Atmel Atmega 328P, which is called Arduino Uno version. So that's the reason where we have to select this board and then burn the bootloader. The moment if you select these three options, then you are making your microcontroller to be ready for loading the application program. So this is a, please understand, loading the bootloader is one time. Means since we are developing, the purpose of this tutorial is how a student can develop this platform on your own. So that's the reason why I'm explaining that how you can design this board, how to make this board ready to load a application program by loading a bootloader. This is one time. After that you don't need to load a bootloader. The board is ready for Arduino to load the application programs. Okay, so the when you write the program in any compiler, the compiler refers the hardware resources. So please understand that the uh, the microcontroller pin definition is different from a programming model. So say for example, as you can see, when I look at a microcontroller, I may say port, say for example port D, port C, port B, PB5, PB4 and so on. But if you see the bottom portion of the slide, where when I write a program in a compile by using a compiler, I won't be using the same variable names. I may say D9, D10, D11, D12 and so on. So you need to understand compiler to compiler, the way they represent the hardware, that is called keywords, may be a different from company to company. So naturally you need to understand the hardware representation is different, and a programming model for the same hardware is different. So the variables, say for example, if I want to use a to D converter, then in a hardware it is called PC0 is my channel number 0, ADC 0, PC1 is ADC1, but in my software model it is called A0, A1, A2 and so on. So the program doesn't recognize PC0 or ADC0. Here program recognizes A0 as a variable. So that's the difference between hardware representation and a software representation. So while programming model is slightly different as compared to real hardware, that too based on the compiler. It may not be valid for, it's valid from company to company have their own way of representing hardware in a software.